if you're wanting to create a rich, juicy, wealthy life and really experience freedom, there's a high probability that part of that freedom is to be free of limitations, restrictions, to be able to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, with whom you want to do it, how you want to do it. But there can be a real catch there. And in a previous video, we've spoken about the freedom paradox, and I want to dive deeper into this. The reality is frameworks create freedom. And in fact, we need rules that we can operate on to actually let us be more successful in life. Research has shown that successful people have a lot more absolutes, real, do's and don'ts. Whereas people who tend not to succeed in different areas of their life tend to have a lot, well, maybes, I'll tries, and they tend to sit on the fence a lot. So I'm going to encourage you to get in place your set of money rules. Every financially free person, everybody who's great with money, everybody who has money working for them, serving them and supporting them to live a great life has a set of money rules. So I'm going to share with you my 10 money rules, which were key in getting me to freedom and are still in place for me to maintain my financial freedom. Remember, I was able to go from deep in debt to financially free in 8 years, and I've now been financially free for over 14 years. That's through market ups and downs, different shifts in the market. So it's super important. This isn't about a little flash in the pan. It's about how do you create sustainable wealth that supports you for your life. And you do this with a set of really powerful money rules that you implement in your life, and they just become your absolutes. This is what you do. It also helps you not have to constantly make decisions around, well, what do I do in this situation? What do I do in that? Rules just free you up from having to make those kind of decisions, which are deeply depleting and often very emotionally charged for many people. And most people in the moment will end up making bad decisions when it comes to their wealth. So let's dive in. My money rule number 1, which absolutely accelerated my journey to freedom, was a rule that of every piece of income that comes into my life, 20% gets directed into assets. Yes, 20% of that income gets directed into my asset pot and is used to buy or create investments, assets that can then grow in value for me and earn me income. In Wealth Pie, another important framework around your money management system, I recommend your minimum is 10% to go into there. But if you want to accelerate your freedom like I did, I chose to make my rule 20%. So rule number 2 is, in addition to that, 10% of everything that comes into my life gets set aside for save to spend later. Saving and investing are two completely different things. So this is money that I choose to set aside now in saving to pay for the bigger expenses that are going to come down the way over and above my day-to-day living needs. So that is my money rule number 2. Now my third money rule is a really vital one. So the third money rule is once an asset, always an asset. What does that mean? Is once I've put money into that asset part, I've invested it into stocks and shares, investment properties, low input businesses, whatever my asset is, I am not allowed to rob that pot. So if something comes along and I don't have enough set aside in savings, or whatever happens, I have to find another solution to paying for that. I see so many people not having this rule in place, and so over and over and over they go and rob their investments. It's too convenient to go, oh well, I've got a pension that I can cash out, or I've got that ISA or that tax-free savings account or that Roth that I can get access to. Oh, it doesn't matter, rather that than something else. And it becomes far too convenient to rob yourself. Every time you do that, you set yourself back significantly. So rule number 3, an absolute one-way valve, once an asset, always an asset, is absolutely vital. Because when you're actually feeding off your feast and when you're financially free, you still never actually feed off those underlying assets in terms of that critical capital mass. You feed off the proceeds of the assets. So really important. You always want to consider your assets like planting trees, and you feed off the fruits. So that is wealthy life rule number 3. Now, rule number 4 is also been critical for me. Once I managed to climb out of that devastating debt hole I'd managed to get myself into, this rule was an absolute: no consumer debt. No matter what's come along, no matter what I need to pay for, consumer debt is never an option. Now, it's really important to understand the difference between consumer debt and expansion debt. So you want to go and find that video too and watch that if you're not clear on that. But I'm talking about money that you borrow to consume and spend on something that then you're paying and using your future life force to pay back. Devastating. Rule number 4, no consumer debt. Okay, so rule number 5 is you can use credit cards once you've got a handle on consumer debt. If you've got an issue with consumer debt and you keep using overdrafts and credit cards, go cold turkey. But once you've got a grip on that, there is a role of credit cards in the life that you can use. Maybe for flight travel because you want to be savvy and you can get travel insurance for that. Be very specific about what you choose to put on credit cards and why. Maybe to also maintain a credit score to get better deals. But when you're using a credit card, my rule number 5 is you pay that credit card off in full every single month. That outstanding balance is paid off in full, and you set it up on an automatic payment so it's not even thinking about it. There you go. So you never pay interest on that. So rule number 6 is, and remember these are my money rules, that I have to pay cash for any large purchases. Now, I'm at a point that even if I were to buy another home, if I were to move from my current home and buy another home to live in, I would also pay for that cash. But obviously, while you're building up your wealth, I would use a mortgage for that. So let's put that neutral debt aside, and I also use expansion debt. But everything else, whether it's furniture, holiday, a replacement car, aim to pay it in cash. And now there are certain things, maybe a car going into, you might need to use a loan for that, but be really conscious about that and reduce the amount of borrowing. But everything else, cash, cash, cash. If you can't pay cash, you don't have it. So that has been rule number 6 for me, and it's absolutely transformed my life and created my wealth. Now, rule number 7, this is about having that security and that safety base in place. Is for me, I have 6 months of my survival living needs set aside in a completely separate bank account in cash that is available for me if there was something really catastrophic happened. Now, whilst I was building my wealth, that was so that it could replace my income, my actively earned income, while I found another way to bring income in. And now I still have it in place that if something catastrophic were to happen to my assets, I know emotionally that I have the support of the safety net that can catch me. But it's super important. This is your basic survival living needs. This is not your current lifestyle cost. You don't want a whole big pile of money sitting around doing nothing. You want a cash safety net to catch you. So I choose 6 months. You might choose somewhere between 3 and 9 months. And again, if you're not clear on the whole emergency fund and cash safety net, go and watch that video too, where it goes deeper into what that's all about and what will form part of that cash safety net. So rule number 8 has been reinvest all my investment returns. So remember, check out rule number 3, once an asset, always an asset. But the second component of that is that when growing the wealth, all of my investment returns from the assets gets reinvested. So dividends from stocks and shares get reinvested. Yield, the rental income from investment property gets reinvested. Income from low input businesses gets reinvested either into that asset class or it can buy you other assets. But this is how you significantly accelerate your wealth. This is where compounding and the whole snowball effect of your assets earn money for you. That money gets invested and that now earns for you, and you have this extraordinary curve that kicks up and creates your freedom. That is also why when you see your financial freedom number, you realize that when you truly understand the power of assets and compounding, 90% of your freedom number will be created for you by your assets, not by you. But only if you reinvest your investment returns and let that money keep growing. Now, once you're financially free and once you get into feeding off your feast, a slightly different rule applies. But when you're growing your wealth, reinvest all your investment returns. Rule number 9, never lend money to family and friends. This has been a really important rule for me to set boundaries in place for me. And you know, have I slipped up on this and burnt my fingers on it and also damaged relationships as a result? Hell yes. If family and friends and others truly, truly need financial help, then give them that money. Consider that. But really be careful about this whole disempowered relationship of borrowing and lending money from family and friends, or actually anybody. It is not helping them, it's not helping you, and it's not going to help the relationship. Let's start breaking this disempowered cycle of, hey mate, you know, can you lend me, you know, 10 pounds here or 100 rand there, or you know, $20 for this or that. We are disempowering people with their own money stuff. Rather go, what's going on? Why aren't you able to manage your money? You know, go and say, okay, I'm not going to give you money, but I'm going to buy you this book and get savvy with your money stuff. That is going to be far more effective than giving people money, because if they're having to borrow money and ask family and friends for it, something is going very wrong in their money management side. So rule number 9 for me is no lending money to family and friends, and instead I empower them with skills to help them be great with their own money and create their own freedom. And then money rule number 10 has been, whenever I want to spend anything over a certain financial threshold, and I see something, maybe something that I didn't even know existed, but now I absolutely have to have, because that's part of the emotional behavioral triggers around spend, or emotional side, or a must-have, or FOMO, I have what is called a wish waitlist. And so this allows my emotions to just calm down a bit. It allows my limbic brain that's just going, hey, gotta have, and the more considered part of my brain to come in and go, okay, hang on. Why do I want this thing? Is it really going to serve me? If I spend my money on that, is that going to take me closer to my freedom and my goals and my juicy life, or further away? And so when I happen to have a threshold of $1,000 as my wish waitlist threshold, but you can choose whatever your limit is. And what it means that if I want to spend anything, that amount of money or over, I am not allowed to buy it in that moment. I need to put it on my wish wait list, and my wish wait list is preferably 5 days. It has to stay on that wait list for 5 days. I can check in each day and go, is it still a want? Do I still want it? If after the end of 5 days, I still want it, and I've been able to answer the questions that it's not going to impact my finances negatively, that it is truly going to, you know, bring me joy, and I'm going to love it, and there isn't another way that I could have that same experience, then I can choose to spend that money on it. So those have been really powerful framework that has helped me get financially free. And here's a bonus rule. So rule number 11, now that I'm financially free, I'm now in what's called the drawdown stage, or the feeding off stage of my feast. And I design what is the money, how I'm going to live off my money annually, in terms of what are the different assets, what am I going to take from investment property income, different dividends and yields. But as a whole, I set my lifestyle cost based on a 4% drawdown maximum limit. What that means is I look at my net worth, and I go, what is 4% of my net worth? I know that my net worth is going to be growing at 8, 12, 15%, but I cap my drawdown, so how much I'm going to feed off, as 4% of that net worth. So I know that I've got a big safety margin, that my net worth is going to keep expanding faster than the rate at which I consume and feed off the proceeds of that. So more of that money can get invested, because my goal is not to just keep expanding my consumption, but to actually have more and more money available to contribute to the things that are juicy for me. And that is why setting a 4% drawdown is a great framework for me to choose This is the cost of my lifestyle, and I'm going to live in that. And that is really important part of the freedom. Instead of going, well, what do I earn and how can I consume it? We truly understand that the real freedom is choosing, this is how I'm going to live consciously. This is what lights me up. This is how I'm going to consciously choose to consume resources, time, and energy in a way that's going to fill me up the most and be the most generative for me, my community, my earth, my land, and this is the win-win wealthy living that we're all aiming for. So my name's Ann Wilson, and if you're watching this anywhere then over at thewealthchef.com, head on over there, and in the comments below, I would love to know which of these 10 rules scare the bejeebies out of you. So which one goes, oh, and I don't know whether I could stick to that rule. You know, it's really important to go, oh, fascinating. You know, what is it that scares you about it? And which rule really excites you and that you're going to implement in your life now? And I really encourage you to put your own money rules in place. Maybe you want to share your 10 money rules. And you know what's so great in life? You're allowed to copy. You're allowed to cheat. Take my 10 money rules, implement them in your life. Have a chat with your partner. Let's get this working and get a framework supporting you. And remember, your wealth is created just by step-by-step choices about how you are going to lead and manage your money so that it can serve you better.